All right. Yeah. All right. I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. How I'm supposed to do it. I'm really reluctant to give in to anything that I'm not fully devoted to. And I feel like what I'm devoted to is actually my own life. You know, what is my own life? I'm just trying to understand my own situation, if you know what I mean. So let's just look at it. Right? I have the feeling I found my wife. Now I have a problem because where is she? She's not there. So how can I know that I found her? Well, because every time I'm trying to get rid of her, she's just right in my face. I mean, I say right in my face. I mean, we have to think like Arya Stark here. Right, we have to think like Arya Stark. You know, how did George R.R. Martin come up with this idea? Well, it's hard to say. Well, somebody once asked me, how many personalities do you have? And I say, well, I would say a couple. You know, I have a lot of faces and I can put them on and I can take them off. And I'm not quite sure how I come across when you see me. But it's probably not me that you see. It's probably what you want to see, right? It's like, let's just remember what happened to Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp was Johnny Depp. And then they started to think, oh wow, he must be a really nice guy. And now he's playing, you know, these roles. And he's like a superstar and a celebrity, and you know, he has all the money problems, or they say he has, you know, I don't know, I've never met him. Well, I've watched his movies, so you could say I met him. And he probably shaped who I was to a certain degree. Because I could certainly see myself in the way he was performing, which seemed honest and true. Or just whatever. So what happened was that when he got more attention for being Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, right? I mean, they were really milking that thing. You know, it's like you have one McDonald's store and it's great, and then you turn it into a franchise and try to make it the same everywhere, and suddenly it's complete shit. I mean, I'm quite sure that the first McDonald's store was one of these. I mean, have you ever watched The Little Lord? Little Lord Fauntleroy. You know, there's like this shop that his friend has fairly early in the movie in America. And it's one of these little old shops that you still know from some movies. And they're quite nice. And they're nice because there's one guy running them. And he just does an honest job. Now, how do you know if you're doing an honest job? Well, you could probably say that Johnny Depp allowed the general public to suck him into their little game of, now you got hooked, now you got a lot of money, and now you want to be somebody special, and then you're getting the special treatment from society until, in the case of Johnny Depp, you end up saying things like, well, I don't really get it. They were all treating me like I was changing until I realized, I'm still the same guy. And that's basically what you have to realize in your life, that often I think I'm really changing, but what I'm realizing is that on the inside, I'm still the same guy. And so I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do here. When it all gets too much, I just sit down and do some art. Because any choice that I would make now would be based on the belief that my efforts were futile. That's literally true. Because if I would go and work for another man, I would push my own journey off so I can help someone else with his endeavor. So if you work for someone, you basically help them to create what they want to create. And if somebody wants to create an empire for themselves simply to look powerful or to be powerful or to control others, or because he just thinks that money is what he wants, but he's not going to be an investor. I know that already. I know it already. I just have to take one look at the guy and I know he's never going to invest this. He's never going to invest anything. All he wants, and I think that's actually his wife that's pushing him to do this, because I think, that's a lot of judgment right now coming from me. But I feel like sometimes I also need to judge a little bit. Because if I don't judge, then I'm running the risk of following someone that I actually never wanted to follow. Right? So if I would have made a conscious choice, or if I would have had all the information before, let's say, eating a burger at McDonald's and knowing what kind of shit they produce, then I would have maybe never eaten it, but I probably ate the burger because I was told that it's really good. Yeah? It's like the best burger you'll ever eat. And then you start feeling sick and sick and sick, but because they put stuff into it, I think Coke is basically designed so that you stop vomiting. And that's essentially quite certain what this stuff would get you to do, right? You would probably vomit if you would eat it, and be a bit conscious about eating it. So what I'm trying to say is that, life's tough and you have to grow up. And the question is, what does that mean again? You know, I'm really playing games with myself. Like, seriously playing games. You know, if I don't want to hear something, I'm just gonna pretend that I can't hear it. And I'm very good at this. And I'm not sure who's talking, because they're so far away, right? I can't really hear you from here. Right? It's like, you're so far away, you know, I'm not sure what you're trying to say to me. So I think if you really want to talk to me, I think what you have to do is just come into my world and then tell me. And then once you told me, well, maybe we can talk about it. But until you've told me, I'm just going to be very, very blind to everything that's coming out of your mouth. Because I have the feeling you're just really, really stupid. Like, in so many ways, that the only thing I can do at this moment is simply go back to bed. And I'm not saying this because I'm really evil, right? I mean, people always want to have a culprit, right? They want to have somebody. What is this? That is to blame. Right? They want to have somebody that's to blame. And you know, you can't blame me anymore, because this is your bullshit. I mean, this is your bullshit. So why am I supposed to take all the hits here? It's not my... I don't think it's... Oh, shit. You know, I don't think it's my duty to just simply sit here and do what you want me to do. Simply because I think I'm too smart for you. I think you're really stupid, to be honest. Like, I think you're one of the most stupid people I've ever met. And I'm really sick of this shit. And that's really my honest opinion. You know, I think most people that I meet are so fucking stupid that I can't really do anything to please them, because they're so stupid. They don't even know what they want, right? They don't even know what they want. And, right, I meet a lot of women, they look really pretty on the outside, but they're so goddamn stupid that I just don't want to hang out with them anymore. And that's like really, that's the truth. Most women that I meet are so fucking stupid that, you know, it's really sickening me. And, you know, I've fallen in love with so many women, and now the only reason I would have gone to that job and worked there was probably because I thought, you know, I think I want to have sex. Yeah, I do. But then I look at how stupid these people are. You know, how they don't fucking get anything. Like, they don't understand why their business isn't running. And I mean, that's tough coming from a guy whose business is also not really running. So, you know, who am I kidding, right? Who am I kidding? Because clearly I don't know what I'm doing, but I have the feeling I do. You know, and that's really good for you, right? It's like, nice that you know what you're doing. And say, yeah, I think I know what I'm doing, and at the same time I don't. But in a way, it's all the same to me. I don't really care anymore. And that's only half true, of course. Because of course I care. I mean, everybody cares. Nobody does not care. I mean, I believe that there's always somebody who cares. About something at least. And I think I really don't give a shit about women. What I give a shit about telling the world how fucking stupid they all are. And that's not a joke. Right? That's not a joke. I'm not saying this as a joke. I'm saying this because that's what I really see. To me, humanity is just so goddamn stupid that I don't want to be a part of this anymore, right? This is the closest that I allow this to get to me. This kind of world that people have created, which to me is just a pile of shit. Just a pile of shit, angry people running around, being annoyed out of their wits. You know, they don't know what to do. And right, who am I supposed to be in this? And that's probably a very valid question. You know, who am I supposed to be in this? The hell if I know, right? I don't know. I don't know. And that's honest. That's me saying, you know, what is with this? Doesn't matter. Let's just continue. So, truth be told, I don't really like this. I mean, I've said these things already a million times before. I don't really like this kind of life. I mean, this kind of life. I don't have to spend my days sitting around inside. But I choose to because I simply don't like how it is on the outside. I mean, there are just too many restrictions. There are too many ridiculous rules. There are too many things that I find unnecessary. So I just simply say, yeah, fuck it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. You know, that's what my voice says all the time. You know, that's me saying no to basically everything this society is trying to give me. I basically reject most of the stuff that you find in society. I don't go to the parties you make. I don't go to the bars that you own. I don't talk to the people. Not really. You know, I'm not really here anymore. You know, I'm living my life far away from your problems. And when I talk to people about my choices, you know, all they can do is just trying to make me feel bad for my choices. And then they go back home and they gonna laugh about me, right? But only if I change my way. You know, if I'm trying to be the way you are, then you manage to suck me in. And right, and that's probably the mob. It's just really stupid people, a bunch of really stupid people. I mean, that's just everyone. A bunch of really stupid people that just fuck around with life. But they have no idea what they're doing, you know. They smile in one moment and then they start to cry. Although they were the ones that basically, you know, they make themselves cry. And that sounds so true that it's hard to believe how stupid people are. They're really like little children walking around crying about bad weather, while bad weather is something that has been created by the news media, by people who think the world is terrible. And that's simply something that you can either acknowledge or simply keep sucking up to, you know, the weather forecast. Yes, sorry, but like they can predict the weather. I mean, have you ever heard the weather forecast? It's never really accurate, right? And even if it is, you know, I don't really give a shit. Because as often as it is accurate, it's also inaccurate. I mean, there are so many weather portals. You know, if you look at all of them, I'm sure one of them is going to tell you the truth. But you could also simply look at the weather and trust your feeling. Well, maybe it's going to rain today. Well, today the weather is really nice. So, question, why am I sitting at home again? Right, why am I sitting at home again? Well, I don't know. Because I'm just sick of everything else. I'm just sick of it all. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live this kind of life anymore. I'm sick of it. You know, that's the definition of being sick of something. You know, I hate these lies by anyone who's out in public. Whether they act like, you know, they love what they're doing, or, you know, it's like goody two-shoes, you know. I'm here to save the world, while everything they want is just people to suck up to them. And, you know, I just don't want to do this anymore, because if I would go to the boulder hall and ask for a job, you know, I know what a kind of guy I am. I mean, I just have to look at the shit that I'm doing and realize, wow, you know, I mean, I've done all of this. You know, I've done all of this. And it seems like I'm here to stay. You know, I tried to leave. I really tried. To no avail. And so I'm still here. So, you know, what's that mean? Well, it means that apparently people still have usage for you. Well, that all sounds very neat, but I still don't like the way it's been going. You know, the great thing about art is I don't have to give a shit how the controller really looks like. I don't have to give a shit how the controller really looks like. You know, I don't have to ask other people for permission to use their music if I make my own music. Right? I can keep it gray if I want to. Right? And then I can say, okay, let's make it a little less bright. Gee, man. So, I mean, all I have to say is, I don't like it. You know, I don't like science. Because they just think they got it right, and anybody who thinks they got it right is full of shit. So I don't like science. And I will never like science, because science is just, you know, sucking up to the industry. You know, it's just like pushing around opinions and then saying, you know, I got it right. No, I got it right. And how about we all got it wrong? How about that one? How about we're all wrong about everything? You know, how about that one? You know, how about trying to accept that you have no fucking clue what's going on? Well, that's really hard to accept, isn't it? That's one of the toughest ones. But I think it's time that you started to work with that one. Because I've accepted that already. I have no fucking clue what's going on. So all I can do is hold on and just make sure you know, I'm going to somehow manage to get out of it in one piece. Maybe not in one piece, maybe in two pieces, you know, I can't really say. But everything else is just shit. So yeah, I'm not sure if there's a point of, you know, I actually want to listen to music and just do that in quiet, but I'm so angry. I have to do something with that anger. And at the moment, the only thing I can do with my anger is either record music, make videos, but I'm really so angry that the best thing I can do is just stay at home. Because trust me, if I would go and work for other people, you know, I don't know. You know, it's not, you know, I'm not saying I'm aggressive or anything. I'm just saying that I have a very, very short span of you know, my patience is wearing really thin. And that's not just my patience. That's everybody's patience. That's everybody's patience. Everybody's patience is running really thin. Because everybody is thinking the same thing. And what that is basically enough of the bullshit. I don't want your stupid bullshit lies anymore. I don't want your stupid lies anymore. And I think we all know, you know, where this is being directed at. Because, I mean, they're all over the place. And, you know, it's not just... I'm not just talking about, you know, celebrities or whoever runs the show. I'm talking about everybody. You know, everyone. Including you and including myself. You know, I'm really talking about, you know, this is like bigger than you or me. Because it's everyone. It's really, really everyone. Everyone is just lying about everything. And it's just, I hate it. I mean, I hate it so much. It's incredible that you can hate it so much. And I sometimes don't know how to deal with this amount of hate that I have inside of myself for all these fuckers that just do all these stupid things and think that it's okay to do them. I mean, I'm really not sure how much more I can take of this bullshit. Because it's just so I mean, we're drowning in it. Just lies, just people sitting around yapping like how am I supposed to deal with this stuff? Because this is different than, I mean, I'm being controlled by all the bullshit opinions that are trying, that they are trying to feed me with. And if you still don't know what that means, well, keep going, you're gonna figure it out. I'm sure one beautiful day, somewhere in this almost secure distance, you're gonna figure it out, right? It's like, one of these days, you're going to figure it out. And that's very promising, right? Very, very promising. But also very, very acknowledging. Or let's call it, it's not evasive. I think there's a word I'm trying to look for. Or maybe I'm actually looking for it. But I just know that I really hate it all. I hate all of it. I hate all these fake smiles, right? I hate basically everything. Everything that is dishonest and full of shit. Everything that's dishonest and full of shit. And that's why if I would go to the Boulder Hall and ask for a job there, I would not go there to help anyone. I would just go there to, rub it into his face that I think he's really dishonest. And what does that say about me then? I mean, ultimately, everything I say to somebody else is a projection of myself. And, I feel like he could do a better job. And so I want to go there and help him. But he didn't ask me for help. He didn't ask me for help. I mean, that's the truth. He did not ask me for help. And I think that's what I don't like. Because I think, he should ask me for help. Because, I've seen it all, I'm very knowledgeable. And then I think about, well, how about I go to him and tell him, why don't you do a YouTube channel? And then he would look at my YouTube channel and he would realize, well, what the fuck are you talking about, man? I mean, you got 100 followers. Yeah, but I mean, you never know what's in the background, right? And then, yeah, well, what's in the background? Well, I don't know, because I'm not seeing it. What do you mean you're not seeing it? Well, I have a feeling that it's gonna work someday. You see, it's a very fishy place to come from. And, he's not gonna hire me, right? He's not gonna hire me. Because apart from the fact that I already applied for a job and then said, yeah, sorry, I don't have time because I have my own business to run, which is true. But, just keep going with this kind of idea. What does it mean really to do what you came here to do, well, you have to sacrifice an awful lot of things that you are not really honest about. I mean, I would like to be good at bouldering, but at the moment I don't have money. So the only reason I want to work in the boulder hall is because I want to go and boulder. Because I don't have enough money. Well, if I don't have enough money, I can go and work in the boulder hall so that I can boulder more, or I can simply work harder on my mission and simply trust that something's gonna come out of it and that eventually I'm gonna earn money and then I can go more often to the boulder hall. But I'm afraid that this will never happen. Right? Because nothing's happened until now. Like, nothing's really happened until now. And that's the truth. You know, I'm still not earning my own money. Which means that every day, I wake up and I look at the world and I think, what is this? I mean, this is the Maya? This is the dream? Why am I dreaming such bullshit? Like, why am I dreaming of a world where I have to do things that I don't want to do? And then the question is, of course, why is sitting alone at home doing what you do again? Like, why is this again what you think you want to do? Well, I don't know, right? I don't know. And now it's already 6:55. And all I've seen today is the inside of my apartment. But I have the feeling, you know, in terms of being devoted to my own mission, you know, I've done a very good job. But if somebody would have been here with me today, you know, what would they have done? You know, they would have sat here and they would have said, well, you didn't really do much, did ya? And I'm like, well, from your perspective, but from my perspective, I was basically I'm like doing a sitting where I just force myself to be alone in my apartment so that I can stand up for what I want to do, right? This is how I want to live my life. This is how I want to live my life. Not how you or anybody else wants to live his life. This is how I want to live my life. And I can make a choice, or I can let others make this choice, but I rather make the choice myself. You know, and that's basically all there is to it. You either make the choice, or you let others make the choice. So I could ask somebody for their opinion. Do you like this image like this? And then they would say, no, it's ugly. Yeah, but if you would release it, maybe people would really like it. You know, I've worked now for maybe half an hour on this image while talking. And now I have the feeling, now I like it. Because it's new. You know, I was getting bored. I was getting bored of making art. Not because art is boring, but because, you know, if you keep doing it in the same way over and over and over again, then even the things that you once loved are gonna get boring. And that's true. I mean, that's truth. That's truth. I mean, that's the truth. That's truth. And that's how I feel about my own life. That if I will continue to live the life that others think would be better for me, then who am I in this? Who am I in this? If I live the life that others have dreamed for me, well, who am I then? Then I'm the anti-Zen. Because what's Zen? It's doing what you feel like in the moment that you're gonna do it. And I've tried working so this one's called Altering the Shape of Your Dream. That's what I'm doing. I'm changing my dream. And it's an awful lot of work. Awful. It's full of awe. And, right, everything that people say you should have, I have not. There's no woman next to me. I sit here and my parents pay my apartment. They pay the electricity that this is running from. I'm not saying that because, I'm trying to be proud of it. But maybe if you're proud of your son and he actually figured out something that he wants to do with his life, and you have the money, then why would you not invest into this child? Oh man, Other than thinking that he's lost his way. Because I found a way to do what I want to do. And it's taking a really long time. I mean, we're not talking 2 weeks here. We're not talking 3 months here. We're not talking half a year. I mean, I started in 2000 and I think we can skip my birth. What's this? I started with my podcast in 2021, my first book, 2021. And then 2022, I was completely nuts with YouTube, doing art, Instagram, and I wrote a lot of books. That was 2022. And I made sure that the podcast for the entire year of 2023, which is this year, I can rub my nose on that. Can actually be a bit proud of yourself sometimes. I'm just making sure it's continuing. Well, what I don't know is whether people actually like what I'm doing. Now that's a tough one. That's a really tough one, my friend. It's a really tough one. And why I'm saying it like this is because it's basically the toughest one. To do what you want to do because you love it. without asking people for their opinions. You know, what I like about putting a lot of distance between me and my creations and also between me and smoking weed, for instance, is because I learned to see myself in an entirely new way, in an entirely new way. And I forget actually what artwork I'm gonna do next. Sweet. I'm not sure if that's like super sweet, but I do like it. And to record this video, you know, I'm just talking about what it means to be honest about what you want to do. That means you don't record a video if you don't feel like it. You know, I thought, why can't I, let's say, you know, why can't I just do these Let's Play games now? And I've tried. I started with Apes Odyssey and I just hated it so much. It's like, what the fuck? I mean, there's no flow in this game. You know, it's always a cut, it's a cut, it's a cut, it's a cut. And I don't even care about the story anymore because it's empty. There's no life in such a game. Yeah, it's like a interesting whatever. I mean, that's basically all you're gonna get out of this. Because it's made up. There is, I mean, it's pointless to make a game about something that's already so obvious. I mean, you're not playing Ape, the slave. You're playing yourself, the slave. And you're trying to free yourself by playing a computer game that's just complete nonsense. And maybe I'm still gonna play it, alright? You know, I'm not too fixed on this. But it's just what you have to listen to. Why do you want to play this game? Because you feel like you're Ape and you're trying to escape and you want to help as many people as you can. But can I help them by playing computer games? Well, can you? I don't know. Let's just see. I don't know if you can. Well, you could, but also realize that it's a trap. Because it does not help you to grow old, you know, to shed your skin and become something new. It just keeps you trapped in this, I'm a little child. And then you're going to be 35 or 46 and you're going to record videos, you know, of your surprise egg collector's editions. It's like, what the fuck, man? You know, time to grow up now. I mean, have you looked at the people that live in the Amazon rainforest, that walk around with feathers on their head, you know, that protect their home from people who are trying to destroy it, from capitalism, basically, from greed, from Western civilization, from us, so that I can sit here, and record this footage that you may watch. You know, there has to be a person somewhere on the other side of the world that crawls into a hole to get the metals and the materials that we need for these chips. Yeah? Because even this camera has a chip in there. And wires and shit, right? You know, we think it's okay that somebody at the other side of the world has to crawl into a fucking hole and dig it out with his bare hands with a torch on his head. I mean, talking about claustrophobic, I mean, these people you could say are heroes because they're making sure that this shit show keeps going. And so the least we can do is just make it as valuable, as enriching as we can make it. Instead of just laughing about farts. I mean, don't you have anything else to say for yourself than to fart in front of the camera? I mean, if it happens, it happens. But to do it on purpose, because you want people to laugh, you know, it's like, just fucking drop that shit. Because you're basically farting on everybody with this. And of course, my art is basically also a giant middle finger. It's like, you know, fuck all of you. You know, fuck AI. Let's call this Coconut Kingdom Revealed. You see, if I don't do this kind of work, and one reason I'm building it up always, right? It's like, I'm building it up. I'm building. Where's this? Oh yeah, I deleted it. So what you have to do is, you have to make a choice and then make sure that it's a well-informed choice. It's a well-informed choice. Instead of just doing what everybody else does. And I'm trying to do that. And I'm doing it to the point of, you know, this is going to drive me insane. I mean, I'm ripping my head out, my hair out. Just like basically you know, Gandalf when Pippin does all these stupid things. You know, I'm really ripping my hair out. You know, this guy, that's me. I mean, this guy here, I mean, you can see him, right? That's me. I drew this when I was 16. I didn't even smoke then. But sometimes today, for instance, you know, I was fairly certain I would go to the boulder hall and ask for a job. And then you know, it's like, I'm not proud of this. I just scrambled together, you know, some of the doobies I still had left, you know, and I broke off the tip, the filter end, and I took out what little bit was still left in there, and I rolled a new doobie with it. I mean, talking about mad, right? Is that mad? You know what helped me? It calmed me down a little, and I realized, all right, I think you really have to sit this one out. I think you really have to sit this one out. And I did. You know, I'm still here, right? Yeah. I'm still here. I haven't left. But it's, you know, for what are you doing it? Well, if you can't find a good reason, just do it for yourself. I mean, that's the most honest thing you can do, is just do it for yourself. That's, you know, if you can't find anything else, just do it for yourself. I'm probably doing it for a whole lot of reasons. But if it boils down to it, damn it. You know, always I'm really quick on deleting things. And then I'm angry that I deleted them. Because I used to have an image of... Yeah, it's scratching, you see. Do I have to do this in front of the camera? Well, I just did it. I can't tell you anything else other than that my life did not go as planned. My life did not go as planned. When you're hearing me, my life did not go as planned. Ever. Never did it go as planned. Oh, damn it. See, like this, why did I? You know, why? Why? Please tell me why. But I saved, no, damn it. I saved it on the wrong end. Yeah, now I'm finally singing again. Now who's to say I have to just do it again. Check. I can close this. Yeah, because I want you don't see it. Because this is all I'm gonna give you now from my art. Now, you want to know how I do this? Find your own style, right? I'm just doing it to inspire you. Or to prove to you that I'm actually doing it myself. Right? That's actually true. Because in times of AI, you really have to show that you're the one who's doing it. Like, you really have to show people that you're the artist behind your work. And now I let go of this anger. You know, I'm sometimes then afterwards not quite sure how I'm supposed to feel then. And what does it mean to open up? What does it mean to be angry? Because once I let it all out, it's gone, and then what am I gonna fill myself with again? Well, first I have to let go of these things. And then I can go back and fill myself. You know, it's like Sting, for instance. I was listening to Sting and I really liked it, and it was like so nice. And then I started to hate him because I thought, what kind of a pussy is this guy? I mean, he was just sitting around looking pretty. And then I started listening to Chris Webby. And then I liked him for a while. Like, really liked him. And still I started to get sick of him as well. And then I stopped listening to him. And it gets to the point where I, sit at home and I imagine myself doing some kind of collaboration with him. But then I keep listening to him and I realize, I think that guy's a fucking idiot. I mean, he certainly sings like he's on steroids. Why doesn't he just stop? I mean, no wonder he's just running around screwing all these women. But, I mean, that's a very tough place to be in. Like, I don't think he really has plans to ever become a father. Because in order to become a father, you know what he would have to do? And that's his challenge, is to accept that he's not this guy that he is on Adderall. That if he wants to get better, basically, he has to let go of fucking. Because fucking will drain you. It will leave you empty. And You know, I'm at this very weird stage where I feel like I really need to have sex, but I don't want to have sex. I feel like I probably would need to have sex, but I don't want to have it. Not with just anyone. You know, that would have to be something very special. You know, that I would jeopardize my own heaven, you know, to invite somebody in. You know, this woman would have to be really secure about wanting to do this with me. Because if she wouldn't be, she would just keep running away. And I can't just take this shit anymore. I mean, I just can't take this shit anymore. And that's when I say, right, I mean, what would happen if I would go and work for another man now, at this stage? Because I've been self-employed, or I feel like I have been harnessed by God. Yeah. For, I mean, a couple of years now. And years turn into eternities. And how can I say that? Well, because I fucking lived it, man. I'm fucking living eternity. You know, I'm in this room forever. You know, I just came into existence in this room. I was being born into such a room. Because everything I did before just stopped existing. Well, what does that mean? It makes no sense. Well, it does. Because my dream changed from, you know, what am I doing? What is my job? What am I supposed to do? You know, that's all stuff for people who are unconscious of the fact that they're dreaming. So they just run around and they're stuck in these kinds of dreams. You know, life has to be hard. You know, I have to be like this. And sometimes they're really, I mean that really crazy things happen. You know, let's just talk about what happens when you grow spiritually. You know, some of the things I sometimes realize that I pick up on that give me an idea of, you know, how other people see me. And I don't want this to sound overly confident. I just want to make sure that people have maybe heard this. And you can't really do anything with that. It's just you have to pay attention what's happening to the people around you. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I went to go shopping for tobacco. And while I was buying tobacco, there was a woman selling the tobacco. And while I was standing there, she suddenly started to look at something that looked like a bit like to the side of me, behind me, and she was like completely drawn into this. And I thought, what is she being drawn into? And I felt like because I'm open, she can receive a message. Because when you're true to yourself, you only have to enter the room and truth is there. You don't have to say anything. You know, people are trying to pick fights with you. People are trying to push you around because they try to reject the truth that, you know, you are some kind of higher spiritual being that's been opened to bring truth to the people. And if you look at my work, then there's no doubt about it that truth is certainly something that inspires me to simply figure out what is truth. You know, what does it mean to be honest? And to be honest, I have no idea. But I see differences. I see a difference in my behavior. You know, if I go to the Boulder Hall and there's a woman in these, you know, every woman these days has to wear these yoga pants that have nothing to do with yoga. And all I want is, you know, just look at my butt. And it looks so cheap. You know, if I see women like this, I immediately lose interest because it's like, please fuck me. Yes, sorry, but why don't you just run around naked? Because this looks super cheap. If you were naked, I could actually, you know, oh wow, she's got cheek. But to wear these pants? That's got nothing to do with cheek. That's just stupid. I like the word idiocracy. It's not that I like it, like really like it, but I just said it. And so how am I supposed to deal with shit like this? I cannot take you serious. And sure, that's a woman I twice had sex with. You know, although we did sleep in the same bed together for a long time, we didn't really have sex anymore. Simply because I just felt nothing. Like, I wasn't really interested in her. I just felt like there was something I had to do. And yeah, the truth is she was pregnant when I met her. And maybe you're getting bored of this story already because I've told it before. And I helped her. And now I recently met her again in the Boulder Hall. Okay, what I have to say is I thought she looked attractive. I thought she looked attractive. I have to say that I thought she looked really attractive. Like, she looked like... Not like she used to be. She used to hang around in the air a lot. And to be honest, I'm afraid that, you know, I don't know. There was a woman that I thought I really love her. You know, there was a woman where I had the feeling, you know, I think this woman is my wife. And that was the first time I really felt this. Before I was like, yeah, she could be it. You know, let's just see, let's just have a lot of fun or something. But with this one, it was like, I think you're really it. But nothing's coming from that side anymore. Physically, so I'm just, right, I'm actually giving up on it. I'm actually giving up on it, but at the same time, you know, if I were to go around and just have sex with random women now because I think it's over, then what would happen if it wouldn't be over? Because if you meet someone and to you it's this too good to be true, how far are you willing to go for this? You know, it's not enough just for you, you know, maybe it has to be for you this kind of, you know, too good to be true, but what's too good to be true? You know, too good to be true is me earning a living with writing books, with basically filling people's minds with my ideas, which have always been unique. I simply have a way to see the world that is not accessible to other people. And that just comes natural to me, right? Where other people see just bad stuff, you know, as soon as somebody starts talking bad, what I start to see is, oh wow, duality, you know? What does duality teach us? Oh yeah, you know, everything's the same. Because, you know, if you talk left, you know, I see right. If you talk right, I talk, you know, I see or talk left. Then I bring it together and I say, but, you know, eventually it's all the same thing. So why do I not eat meat again? I mean, do you hear where I'm coming from? Why do I not eat meat again? I don't know. And that's true. I don't know why I don't eat meat. I mean, I have eaten meat, and I have liked eating meat, and I felt like, I think it also gave me strength. And now recently I've eaten fish, and I once ate chicken, and I do eat eggs, and I sometimes feel like I need eggs to give me strength. So, but now we come to the point, you know, I know why I don't eat meat, because the meat that I would get today is just not, it's not it. Because I didn't catch it myself. So question, do I need to eat meat? You know, do I have to be like the Avatar? Or, I mean, there were meat-eating avatars, I'm sure of it. And I'm not a monk, which my usage of pornography clearly shows. You know, I'm like, I'm living this. But then the question remains, do I really not, should I really not eat meat? And can I not work for other people? I mean, I just feel like I'm just really being stubborn about this one. And then I start talking about it, and then I realize, well, why don't I just do it? I mean, I could earn a bit of money. You know, what am I really jeopardizing? You know, do I have to be holy? You know, do I have to be like whatever being clean means? You know, can I not just have sex? You know, what is the true meaning of having sex? I just have the feeling that if I have no sex, I stay younger. I have the feeling that if I would have sex now, I would lose a lot of my abilities. Because one of the reasons that I keep going is because I'm in love with a woman. And this woman just turned her back on me. And maybe she turned her back on me because she was saying, you know, I'm gonna meet you later. Well, we first have to do this on our own. And that's, of course, a hard one, because what does that mean, right? You know, if that's what her message is, what does it mean? You know, does it mean, you know, I'm just gonna fuck around and have a good time with all kinds of men? Or does it mean, no, I will wait for you, and if you do the same, then we're gonna be together? Well, then you still have to ask yourself, well, is that what I want? Do I want to be with this woman? You know, I had only a couple of weeks with her, and it just felt good. I mean, it really felt good. Really, really good. And that's something that I'm really reluctant to simply throw away. Right? So, I mean, I'm a sucker for love, and I loved her love, even though she didn't get. I mean, she has no idea, I think. And I think I have no idea how she feels about me. I think we both have no idea how we feel about each other. And that's just speaking from a distance again. I mean, that's like really far away. And that's my problem. You know, if spirituality is about letting go, then how can I hold on to anything? And that's why I'm so awfully insecure about making any choices at all. Because I don't even know what's real. And when I try to leave this apartment, I often get back to this place where I realize I cannot. You know, I'm literally stuck here. And then I'm thinking about what's keeping me trapped, right? What's keeping me in here? And then, well, that desire to simply share myself with the world. Well, and I continue to do so. But if you've done something for such a long time and nothing comes back, you get to this point where you say, I just don't want it anymore. Which is where I'm at now. I'm now on the verge of saying, you know, fuck it. I'm just gonna stop. You know, screw all these people. But that's the problem, because I'm actually not just doing it for other people, I'm actually doing it for myself, because, I mean, I'm the one who's feeling all of these emotions. I'm also the one that needs an outlet. I'm the one who's trying to outgrow himself. Not because he loves some kind of woman. It was just something that I think was valuable to me. You know, I don't know. So, what does it mean to give something all you got? Well, you simply open up to the possibility that there's something you can do in this world to change it for the better, maybe. And that's a real tough one. I mean, that's a real challenge. That's a real challenge because, you know, I'm not overly concerned. If I feel like I need to see some breasts because they inspire me, because they amuse me, you know, women are muses. Yeah, it's like, you know, a woman is a muse. And it certainly looks beautiful how, you know, a man can have sex with a woman. You know, I like it. But what I don't like is, you know, so the thought that it would always be the same woman is as difficult to digest as the one that it's always going to be a different. So just look at this thing like Chris Webby, for instance. I mean, he's singing about that he just has sex all the time. But what happens if you just keep having sex? Well, no child comes out of it, which means after a while, you know, that's all that is. You're gonna fuck a woman. And that's it. No child, no love, you know, it's just sex. And when that's gone, then you're alone again. And maybe that's what you want. But for me, it's, you know, okay, I'm either alone or I'm with someone. And when I'm alone, you know, then I'm going to be alone. And when I'm with someone, I'm going to be with someone. And I think if I know how to be alone, maybe I can appreciate being with someone then at a later stage. You know, that sounds like really fancy. That almost sounds like it makes sense. But at the same time, it just makes no sense at all. Because why can't I be with someone now? And, well, I'm not sure. Because there's nobody that really makes an effort to be with me, if you know what I mean. Right? If there would be somebody that would come out in the open and say, I want you now. You know, not this childlike, staying at a distance and looking at me with longing eyes. No, I really mean this. No, I want you. Like, I really want you to be my man. And then you also have to come forward and say it. You know, I want no other man, I only want you. And that's the really tough thing. And I do meet women where I have the feeling, you know, they just want to have sex. You know, they just want to have sex. They're not really interested in me personally. They just want to have sex. And, well, but I have no interest in just having sex, you know? Because I realized that just sex isn't really doing it. Like, I want to know that this woman also stays there, right? So that you can also... But maybe I'm a little bit short-sighted on this, you know? Maybe I think I have to be overly horny for a woman, you know? But I'm also... I don't want to hurt. You know, I feel like I've hurt a lot of women because I wasn't certain that I wanted to be with them. And I don't really want to do that anymore. And that sounds really nice, and then all the women can say, oh wow, you know. But it's just the way I feel. You know, I feel like I've hurt a lot of women. And sometimes I would like to give them something back. Because I'm also honest about it. I mean, if I see a woman, what I see is, oh wow, she can make me feel nice, right? You know, she's got beautiful lips and really soft, and she's got, you know, a good vibe. Then I think, oh wow, maybe, you know, she would be interested. But what I want from a woman is also that she's strong, that she knows that, right, I want him. Right, I want him, only him, no one else. You know, that's just what I want, you know, that's what I came here to find out. If such women exist. You could be like Chris Webby and you just pick any random girl and then you're just gonna have sex a lot. But in the end, you're just gonna be alone. And, right, I'd rather be alone and be okay with being alone than being alone because nobody wants me. Because the truth is that I'm just letting it up to the women. You know, I know that I have something to give. And I have a lot to give. And when there's no woman that wants it, then I'm just gonna be alone. And I feel like at the moment, I still feel like somehow, if I'm really honest, then there's exactly one woman that I would want to be it. And that is But it's not really true, to be honest. Um, I'm not sure. And that's every time how it goes. I say these things and I sound very certain. Yeah, right, that's how it is. I only want this one. And then I realize, yeah, but is that really true? Because if there would be another kind of woman here now, I would take it. I would take her. So I'm not really honest, but I certainly have to feel something. And if I have the feeling that she doesn't really want it, then I'm going to retreat. And yeah, I can only wait for so long. And then you think, how should she look like? White, black, it's like blonde, a bit curvy. Well, who's to say, right? Who's to say? I'm not quite sure. Right? Is she supposed to have large breasts or small breasts? Or doesn't it matter at all? Like, should she just be pretty? Or should she have a certain depth to it? Should she, like oral sex? Or just, maybe sex isn't that important to you? I know, for instance, that sex is important to me, but only if, it's also a bit of a challenge. And that's what I miss in a lot of women. The challenge. That's really what I miss in a lot of women, the challenge. Where I feel like, on an energetic level, we actually we can actually work with each other, right? It's a challenge for both of us. Oh yeah, I forgot something. It's a challenge for both of us, but we're gonna take it. But if you're the only one running after the challenge, then it's gonna get really boring really soon. Because there's no point to it anymore. Because if the excitement is gone, then what's the point? I mean, that's what love is supposed to be like, right? It's about to be, it's about to be exciting. It's about being exciting. So, having a child is supposed to be something exciting. But I feel like it's just gone. And that's what I'm trying to get back to. Now I will keep this going. I just want to go and be a little bit relaxed about sitting here. Just think about what I just said. So all I can tell you is this. You know, if you're a beautiful woman or a beautiful guy, don't give it all away for pictures that make you look sexy. You know, that's just how I feel. Because ultimately that's just gonna leave you empty. And it's a lie. And I just have the feeling it's better to, you know, simply invest it into a true and honest relationship. And I don't want to sound overly holy, but the choices I've made why is it not showing me? Yeah, sometimes it just does that. It's really strange. All you can do then is you just save it. And then you close it. And then you open it again. But I also have to say that I'm grateful in this kind of world that there are women that expose themselves so that men can basically look at them and do something with them. I mean, that's not... It doesn't sound awfully nice when I say it like this, but that's simply what it is, right? It's... because there are women that, you know, show me their nudity I can look at them and love them when there is no woman in my presence that could give that to me at the moment. And that's the truth. I mean, there is no woman here that gives me anything. Like, there is no woman here. I'm alone in this room. And that means I have to deal with the things on my own. Because like I said, there is no woman here that helps me with anything, ever, at all. Like, I'm just doing this on my own. And I simply said at one point, there are no excuses anymore. You know, I'm just gonna do it. And then I realized, well, it's gonna be a tough ride, right? And then you say, well, I said I was gonna do it. And then you find yourself in a position where there's nobody. Because nobody had the balls to back you up. Like, not really. Like, there's nobody to back you up. And then you say, well, that's kind of a empty place. Like a very empty place. Like, not just a bit empty, but just like really empty. So how are you gonna deal with this? And then you say, well, it's a piece of cake. Oh yeah? Well, if it's so easy, you know, I'm sure you won't mind doing this for the rest of your life. And you're like, sure, but you know, if something is too easy, you're not gonna be overly enthusiastic about really doing it for the rest of your life. I mean, if you want something to spark something inside of you, I mean, you have to know that it's probably the best thing that could happen to you. I mean, it has to be the best thing for you in the entire world, or otherwise it will never be worth the effort. And that's the whole point, right? It's realizing that you're here right now. Right? You're here right now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. You're here now. Which means, right, if you're not gonna figure it out now, then who's gonna figure it out? Yeah, I don't know. You see, and that's basically what I got. I don't know. I've just got a big question mark. I've got a really big question mark. And that's it. That's all I can give you, right? Like a really big question mark. Because I don't have answers for your life. And I will never have answers for your life. Because I'm basically trying to figure out my own life. And that's then when you start boiling everything down. Well, that's a really tight spot to find yourself in. Wait, nobody told me that's how it would, right? Nobody told me that's how it would be like. Yeah, of course not. Because nobody told me either. I mean, I just got, well, I just was given certain visions that looked like a mission to me. And I have the feeling I'm some kind of soldier, right? So all I can do is simply do the task that has been entrusted to me. Even though it just makes no sense at all. Like, literally no sense. From a, you know, I have to understand it rationally kind of place. And that's the hardest thing to accept. That's the hardest place to accept. Like literally. This emotional place that says, you know, it's not that, you know, I'm not getting it at all. You know, I don't fucking get it. Nothing. You know, I don't get shit of what is happening around here. The only thing that I get is that I don't get it. But if I'm being shown a way out, you know, I don't have to think twice. And maybe I have to just be with that woman and just say, you know, when you want to, you can come here. You know, and it's all gonna be alright. But that's also only half the truth. Because the real truth is, you know, I'm kind of sick of waiting all the time. Right? I'm getting kind of sick of waiting all the time. And so I'm just looking for something else now. And then you start reaching out for that something else, and then you realize, oh wow, if I grab that, the other one's gonna go. And then you say, wait a second. Which one is gonna go? Well, the other one. What's the other one? Well, the one you've been working so hard for. Why have I been working hard for her again? Well, because you felt like she could be the one, you know, like the woman of your dreams. And then you're like, yeah, but I mean, you know, maybe I could just have someone else. Well, and then life says, well, you could have, but just consider this for a second. Why did you pick that woman? Well, because I had the feeling she could, you know, come along on the ride. Yeah, and? Well, what's taking her so long? Well, maybe you just needed her to be strong. And that's why she's training so hard to sort herself out so that she can be with you. And then you're like, but there's no guarantee for that. If you know what I mean, I say, there's no guarantee for that. Yeah, you know, that's what we call faith here in heaven, right? You have to work hard without nothing to hold on to. Like, we need you to work really hard without having the slightest idea. I mean, you're not gonna get, you know, this place of certainty. You have to check first, right? You have to check first if this place exists in a way. And I'm just saying, it's gonna drive you insane. I mean, if you want something, like if you really want something, like who's gonna give it to you? If you want this specific woman because of a few experiences you had together, who's gonna give her to you, my friend? Who is going to give her to you? And then you say, well, maybe you? Well, and all you're gonna get from this is like, you know, a giant laughing voice from the back of your mind. Yeah, you really think it's gonna be that easy? Well, why not? Because if I'm not getting that, why don't I just take something else? Because you're gonna fall asleep again. You know, if you have a woman that's unconscious, that's just living her life like, you know, she's in some kind of haze, you know, she's always constantly going to drag you down. And maybe you want a woman that can like, well, maybe you just have to accept it. Maybe you just have to accept it that the woman you're gonna get now is just a worldly woman. Somebody who's not super good at What? Where is this? Yeah, whatever. Right? Maybe you're just not gonna get it that way. Maybe not this time. And maybe not ever. And that's a hard one to swallow. A very hard one to swallow. And that's a very hard one to let go of. And I've been trying. Like, to the point of, okay, this is completely nuts. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Right? To get to this one. But there's just nothing. Which is why I think it's time to simply say, fuck it. Fuck it. Because it's so stupid. What am I even fighting for? And now that could be, you know, that could be an answer. To a question that will never make any sense. Ever. So, question, are you gonna hold on? Or are you gonna let go? And the problem that I often face is, you know, what am I even holding on to? And why can't I see this stupid lens flare? Like, where is this? Why can't I position it better? Like, why are there no controls here? It is very, very annoying. Like, what is this shit? Why is this not working the way I want? You know, that's basically what I live with. Because my entire life is just completely random. Completely random. Completely random. Every day something happens that I don't understand. Something happens that I have no clue about. But it's still happening. It's still happening. And I'm not sure how I'm supposed to feel about it. You know, I'm really getting into this now. You know, I'm really like enjoying this. But I mean, there's enough room to be pissed off on so many levels, right? There's no point in even talking about it. And I know it still doesn't really make any sense. I know. I don't think it ever will make sense. All I know is that that's basically life, right? I mean, maybe you thought life has to make sense, and then you realize it makes no sense. And that's very, very annoying. Very annoying. Like, fuck it. Like, more annoying than anything else. Alright, let's just do it. I don't know what's gonna happen with this. Repeat lens flare. So, you see, I cannot know what kind of sense you're supposed to get out of this. Because all I'm sensing is that I'm really insecure. Like, I'm really insecure. I am really insecure. And all I want is something else. You know, so what? No, I thought it was gonna be different. I thought it was gonna be different. And then I was shown what I came here to do, and I started doing it, and I realized there's a lot of work ahead of me. Like, a lot of work. I mean, not just a bit, but just a lot of work. To the point of, I no longer want to do this. But then comes truth, and it says, well, what did you think it was gonna be, my friend? Like, what did you think it was going to be like? Like, did you think it was gonna be super easy? Or, like, what did you think it was gonna be like? Because I'm starting to get the feeling that you were a little bit ignorant of what was really going on and how much we need people like you to keep doing this kind of work that helps people to free themselves of fear, to simply talk about their emotions in an honest way, right? Because that's much better than just the bullshit that we're getting from all sides anyway. That's how I feel like, you know? That's how I feel like, personally. And that's all I have. You see, that's all I have. I can't talk about anything else than my emotions. And so I talk about my emotions. And when I show it to some people, you know, and they think, whoa, I'm gonna become an independent artist now. Well, if he can do it, you know, I can do it. Oh yeah, then please go and do it. But stop telling me how to do my job. Because you aren't really doing your job, man. I mean, you just sit around. You think you have it all. You basically stopped working And now you want to tell me how to do my job? It's like, I think I'm doing my job already. And all you tell me is to chill. And then I say, well, what do you mean, chill? Did I come here to chill? And that's people that are supposedly older than me, that just talk to me like I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, they're clearly the ones that have no idea what they're doing. And then you start realizing these things, and you start paying attention what people say to you and what they actually do, and you realize, you know, whatever age is doesn't exist. I mean, literally, age does not exist. Simply because I speak to people who are supposedly older than me, and I realize that I'm in many ways wiser than them. And they don't understand what I'm saying, but I understand what they're saying. I just don't want to hear it. And maybe they understand what I'm saying, but I don't think so, because it was always like this my entire life already. You know, I was speaking to people from a place they just didn't understand. You know, they were talking about blue cars, and I suddenly said, hey, wait. You know, do dolphins have to breathe? And they were like, how do you come up with that question? Well, I find it more relevant than to discuss the color of cars. You know, I rather talk about nature. I sometimes don't like the titles of these images, but what I would say is it's building up on each other, right? Right, like start with a spiral, you end with a third eye, and then suddenly you've got a burger-shaped face and a kind of weird wing. I think I'm just gonna call it, it's all part of the package, right? So you come here with a challenge, and the challenge is figure it out, man. That's all you're ever gonna get. And that's what I mean, you know. I cannot come to you and say, that's what you have to do. I cannot come to you and say, this is exactly your solution, right? You just have to smoke a doobie once, and then you're safe. Because that's not how it is. It's completely random. And the closest I've gotten to finding an image that explains this is basically this movie. I think it's called Anything, Anywhere, All the Time. You know, sometimes I look at pictures of women online, you know, I'm just honest about it, you know that already. And then I find one and I think, oh wow, like, she's really it. And then you keep looking at her and then suddenly you realize, yeah, it's just another image. Because if she would stand right in front of you, you know, that's not who she is anymore, right? She's just an image. And that's why I feel like I want to hold on to this other woman, because she's more than just an image. She's a feeling, and it seems like a promise. And then you can ask yourself, well, what's the promise? Well, because sex itself kind of lost its touch. So why are you doing this for? And that's the challenge for the woman. that if she's been given a man to love that just doesn't give a fuck anymore, that just says, you know, I don't care whether you love me or not, you know, I just want to leave. And you can literally make it so unpleasant for a woman to love you that you can basically get rid of all of them. And then you're gonna be alone in the end. And then you're gonna be alone in the end. And that's what I'm saying. And that's what I wanted to prove to her, to anyone. Basically, you don't have the balls to love me. And that's a hard realization. Like, that one's gonna keep you running. And that's what I simply don't want anymore. That's what I said. Right? I don't want to be a sucker for this. Because I do realize, yeah, women maybe have something to give. But I'm not fuzzed by your vagina or your awesome tits. Because if you're a nuisance to me, then you're a nuisance to me regardless of your awesome tits and your nice vagina. I mean, I'm really pissed off in a way by the way women think they can control men with their desire for sexuality, because it literally means nothing to me anymore. You know, I don't care how nice your butt looks like through a screen anyway. I mean, you can stand on the other side of the room and you can look super sexy, but unless you have the balls to come and speak with me, you know, what's the benefit to me? What's the benefit to me of you trying to be with me if you don't show me that you want it? Right? What's the benefit of you looking sexy when you're naked if you cannot come forward and say, you know, I don't know why, but I think I really want you? And that's what I realized every time I went to see a woman, you know, after, basically recently. I don't know why, but they all ran away. And then you can say, well, you know, are you ugly? You know, am I ugly? Does my breath smell weird? Does my body odor? You know, is it like really disgusting? Or, you know, what's the problem? Is it because you see something inside of me that's like so vicious that you simply cannot be with me at all? I mean, there's a lot of reasons, you know, why you should reject me. And one reason is certainly that I'm open about how I feel. And I simply think, I mean, there has to be a woman out there somewhere that doesn't just let any man into her vagina and says, no, I actually want you. And that's it. It's just not happening. It's just not happening. So all I'm left with, you could say, is I'm just looking at images. Because what I need to do is I need to continue with my mission and create a lot of content. And something that motivates me to keep on going is basically the idea that there is something beautiful out there that's not too stuck up on, you know, I'm pretty or I'm sexy or whatever. Because that's the real challenge in times of the internet, where everybody can just show how sexy they are and everybody can look at it. While if you would spend time with that person, you would realize, oh wow, I mean, you know, rather not. And that's how I feel about the whole thing, right? That's like, I mean, that's life. In times of, I don't know what, right? That's life. Probably in times of the internet, it's just a huge pile of shit. And I'm sitting in it. And I'm doing my own thing. And, well, what can you do about it? I mean, I can just sit here and talk for 2 hours. And you have no idea what I just said. You know, I don't like this image. And I really just want to... I just want to have... You know, I don't know. I think I just want to be what I think I can be. I think that's what I want. I think I really just want to be what I think I can be. Like the best version of me that I can be. And that's already hard enough by itself. So, in order to be that, I just try to find the right woman. I'm just trying to find the right woman to show me, you know, what a woman really is. You know, like, you know, I'm gonna nail you down. And I'm just reluctant to give in to any uncertain claims. Because a woman can claim you. She says, you are going to be my husband. You know, she can claim you. But, well, she can only do that if she manages to stay true to you. And I just made sure that basically nobody can do that, because I don't want to be caught. You know, I'm better at playing catch than women, I think. And I've learned from some women. Yeah. You know, at the moment, all I can do is go back to the experiences I already have. Because I'm not making that many new ones at the moment, at least not sexually. But while I was in Africa, there was this crazy French girl. And, you know, I didn't really know how that happened, but I did have sex with one French girl who was really into me, and it wasn't really nice. We didn't really cuddle. We didn't really love each other. I don't know. She just, you know, just talking about it just makes me sick. I mean, she just, you know, if she had a bad day, she just let me fuck her. And then, you know, that was it. You know, there was no, like, blowjob or anything. There was no taking time and cuddling and being nice with each other. There was just, you know, just fucking. And I got really sick of this. But anyway, she left because it was like a camp. It's not like a hero story, right? I'm not Chris Webby. You know, I'm not gonna tell you like I'm awfully proud. There was a time where I tried to identify with these things until I realized it doesn't mean shit. Like, to me, it's just sex. I mean, it's like taking a shit, literally. And so I was trying to, I was just there. I didn't know that there was something maybe nice about me. So I was just feeling, right? Like suddenly there were some women that really liked me. But also, right, what you should never forget is that I was also one of the only men. So it's always good to rationalize it. So yeah, sure, maybe Chris Webby is good at having sex with women, but he's just easy. And I just realized I don't want to be easy anymore. Because I could have turned into some kind of slut. But after I had my last one night stand, my first one night stand, never had a one night stand before this one couch surfing experience. And it was so disgusting, right? The woman, it's like 4 days ago that she took a shower. She smelled like sweat and like piss. And sure, I made it somehow, sound fun. Because when she asked me, I said, well, it wasn't exactly fresh, was it? And then she started laughing. And I asked her, well, when did you shower? And she was like, last, I think Thursday. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, why did you not shower? So sometimes I'm not, I'm wondering if it makes sense to, because I actually like her, I really liked her. So why am I holding on to this one woman? I don't know. Why am I doing this job? Because I have the feeling that's what I have to do. Just have to be like really faithful guy. But I also think that's actually the right thing to do. I just want to leave it open, for this woman in particular, because I think we have an open, not an open relationship, because that doesn't work if you want to have children. What we have, I would call it, I mean, feel free to leave, right? Feel free to leave. Well, when you leave, it's over. And that's what I truly believe, right? When I sleep with a woman, then this relationship is going to be over. And maybe I should really just do that. Maybe I should really just do that. Just get rid of it. And just start living a normal life. It's just very hard if you feel like somebody's your wife on a spiritual level. And it's just, I don't know, if I would see you again, I'm not sure if I would want to have sex with you. That probably, now we can quote Lord of the Rings, but I think that's the movie. Who says it? That depends on the manner of your return. Oh yeah, Dimitor to Faramir. And then what you can answer to yourself is, well, are you willing to jeopardize this? So I'm really talking from an emotional point of view, and I'm really stuck on a lot of these emotions. And I'm really reluctant to let go and give in. I'm just talking because I've got nothing else to do. And I'm basically running around in a circle all the time. I mean, I'm just running around in a circle all the time. and then just do art to pass the time. Because everything else just looks like a trap. Right? Like working at the boulder halls looks like a trap. That's just how it is. It's just a fucking trap. You know, somebody trying to trap me into helping him earn more money is a trap to me. Right? So I try to avoid this place. But not fully, like, because I also like going there. But every time I go there, I feel like I want to have sex with someone else. So I'm really doubting my own motives. I'm really doubting, like, why am I so stubborn? Because there's literally nothing to be gained by just sitting around all the time without, right, like anything. It's just nothing. Just nothing. Just nothing. All the time. You know, you think maybe somebody's gonna, ring your bell, but just nothing. You think, oh yeah, maybe if I stay in today and do art instead of looking for another job, maybe tomorrow I'm gonna get paid. You wake up, nothing. It's like, okay, how am I supposed to deal with this now? You know, am I still on track? Am I supposed to do something else? You know, have I deluded myself into believing that I'm doing this for the greater good? It's like always a bit of a easy word for people to judge. But I feel like, you know, that's partly what it's about, right? You just want to do something honest. And the most honest thing I can say about this is, well, at least I can say that I kind of like what I'm doing. You know, I kind of like it. And the rest is just my own problem. The rest is just my own insecurity. The rest is just, well, figure it out, man. And what do I have to figure out? Well, truth. What is the truth? What's the real meaning behind love? What do you really feel for each of these women? Because I could go around and have sex. Trust me. If it was just for the sex, I could have sex. But it isn't. Because sex itself just turns into something really annoying. You know, as nice as it seems like, but unless you can really open up to each other, it just seems like it's just turning into more of the same. And that's simply what I'm dealing with. Right? Constantly. That's just what I'm dealing with. That's just basically love. I mean, that's as simple as I can make it for you. That's basically love. Right? I feel love for a woman. And that's all I have to say about that. Right? And that's really stupid. It's gonna drive you insane. But I think that just says, well, I think you found yourself a really high quality woman. And then the question is, well, is this woman really true about this? I mean, is she really true about what I think she may feel like? Hell if I know. I don't know, man. I don't know. All I can tell you is that nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense. And that's what's really, really, really annoying. Because if nothing makes sense, then nothing makes sense. So, what's the point again? Right, what are you trying to say? Well, I don't know. I don't really know. I'm just seeing this image and I'm not really convinced that this is the image that I wanted to draw for whatever reason, right? It's like, that's not really the image that I wanted to draw. That's not at all the image that I wanted to draw. It's not the image that I wanted to draw. I really think my job is to just piss off the world. You know, to just not give a shit. To not get overly sucked into the meaning behind what I'm doing. And to simply do it. To simply keep doing it. Because you think, I think, it's nice to do it. For no other reason than, you know, I just like doing it. Because if you say you've been enlightened, then what does that mean? I mean, how are your choices different from anybody else? And that's basically what people want to see, right? That's what people want to know. You know, how are your choices different from everybody else's choices? And I only understand these things if I actually talk about it to myself. Because if I talk to other people about it, all I get is more bullshit. Because then, you know, if you start talking to other people about the kind of wisdom that you found, you know, they want to add their own wisdom to it. But my wisdom is not here to be discussed. Because it's already clear, you know. You people don't know what's going on. And I'm telling you, right? I'm telling you, this is what I see. I mean, Terence McKenna didn't do these talks to discuss what he thinks is right because he went the extra mile to figure it out. He went the extra mile to figure it out. So it's not open for discussion what I'm saying here. I mean, this is my perspective. If you want to listen to what I have to say, then listen to it. Right? But don't be disappointed if I have no need for your opinion. Well, that is interesting. Like, where did that just come from? Right? I mean, I was working on this, pushing around layers left and right, left and right. And then suddenly this. And there's still more, because I want this a bit brighter. It just turned into some kind of lion. Because that's actually the place that you're gonna get to, right? Just gonna get to this place that says, you know, I'm a lion, who are you? Right? If I'm a lion, then what are you doing on my meadow? Because if I'm a lion, you know, then are you either a lioness? And that's where I feel like I'm a little bit uncertain about how this life is supposed to be like. Because you do hear from, oh wow, there are certain kings, and these kings had a spouse. And this spouse, you know, like there was this movie I watched the other day called, not quite sure how it was called. Yeah, I know it. The Woman King, or something like this. And now it's just a matter of colors. For some reason I like this one. Or maybe I'm still continuing. Anyway, and there was this, you know, the king, the kingpin, the pingpin, and he had, I think, 8 wives. And then sometimes I'm not sure, maybe that's what I need, right? Maybe I just need several women that can quench my thirst. And then I'm asking myself, but well, how is that supposed to work? Can this actually work? Or would you be so discriminated against by society because everybody's going to be jealous? You know, why can he have several women? I also want this. And then they're going to talk about it, and then they're going to say, yeah, but I don't think so. You know, you can't do this. Yeah, but there are men like this. I mean, I'm not saying that it's the best thing to do, but if you as a man can love a lot of women, which I'm not even sure I could do, I mean, that's just truth, then, and these women want your love, then why can't you accept it? Well, I don't know. Now it's done. Right? And I don't even have the feeling that a lot of women do want my love. I mean, and the ones that do want it, you know, I just have the feeling I don't want it from you. So that means, you know, there is like a counterpart to all of this. You know, there is like a left and a right. And there's this place where you say, yeah, but, you know, for whatever reason, I just don't want it from you. You know? If I would have this thing in this kind of a perfect world, you know, I would just appreciate it if somebody else would give it to me. Well, and if nobody's gonna come, you're fucked. And then you're just gonna be alone for the rest of your life. And you're gonna hate that you were so picky with the one that was given to you. Well, tough. Really tough. You know? Decisions have to be made. And so I just stay at home. Because it's too complicated. You know, I don't want to figure out who is supposed to be it. You know, I'm just saying, you know, if you want it, you're gonna come for it. No, I'm not sure. I think I like this one better. But I have a problem with the face, to be honest. And so what I could do is, I could go here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and just to the whole nose. Yeah, maybe I'll keep the eyes, and then I'm just gonna see if I take that out. Yeah, fuck it, that's not working. Well, that's a bit of a disappointment. But what you could do is you just add only the face, and then you're just gonna go through it. So yeah, I mean, you listen to me. I mean, it's fairly obvious that I don't know. I don't know. Like, really don't know. And there's a certain kind of freedom in not knowing. There's a certain kind of freedom in not knowing. And the freedom in not knowing is that you can just relax into it. I mean, you just say, you know, I don't care. As long as I'm alive, you know, I'm just gonna roll with it. And as long as you're rolling with it, of course, in a way, you also have to deal with your own shit on your own. And that's simply basically what also Chris Webster is saying. He just says, you're on your own, woman. You know, you can come to me for a good time, but if you come for a good time, then you have to leave again. You know, what he's not saying is, you know, you could stay if you wanted to. And that's the feeling I was being given. I like it, like, I like this one. Right, by a lot of the women, where I say, you know, they always made it look like it was my fault that they left. But they wanted to leave, right? They were the ones that made the choice to leave. And I just said, okay, then leave. Oh wow, I didn't save. Yeah, I did. Did I? No, I did not. So I have to do that. Doesn't matter. Yeah. I call it right in the middle. But I'm gonna write right like a right. You see, that's like, I'm getting a bad vibe from this. And that's what you sometimes have to consider, that some people are very tense if you talk about ceremonies and stuff. You know, they're like, oh my god, they're doing things. So, you know, heart, you know, I'm just gonna say heart earned lesson. And that's it, hard-earned lesson. I'm gonna say lessons. And that means, you know, I opened my heart, a lot of stuff came out. That's what this woman did for me. I think maybe now I'm just looking for somebody else. But at the same time you think, well, if that woman could trigger me to do all of this, then maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's something I cannot explain, right? It's like, maybe that's it. Maybe she's the one I've been looking for. And maybe I'm just being deluded, and you see, that's a very shit position I'm in. Where you just feel like I just have to continue with this crap. You know, until something else comes. You know, until something else comes. I'm just gonna go to my parents, upload all of these videos, and then go back to my apartment and just keep making new videos. And I'm not sure that, I mean, is that really how it's supposed to be like? You come here, you know, it's like, you have a mission. Okay. You know, whatever. Do it. Say, what do you want me to do? Well, this. What is this? You know, sell spirituality to people, you know. Sell them truth. Show them that you can be honest. Even though nobody else is. You know, do this. And you will be given a really sexy woman that will, you know, that will want nothing more than to just lay in bed with you and cuddle and have a good time. And then you're like, you know, that sounds very promising, but there's no guarantee. Nope. Nor do I really know anyone that has done it like this. I mean, most people, they just make music, right? They don't have somebody, you know, like an inner voice that tells them, or maybe they just don't talk about it. If you do this, you know, you're gonna get something. You know, this is like spiritual. It's like, alright, you know, I've always been a bit different. Most people would say I'm a little bit weird. And all I can say, I just want to know what this is. Because I'm posting these images and I don't know where they come from. Like, I don't really know where I'm getting this thing from. And it might be that there is this woman that just loves me so much. And all I can do is just put it into art, right? It's possible. But it's also likely, or it's also possible, that, you know, it's just a fabrication, right? So you see, it's like, left, right, left, right. She loves me. She does not love me. She loves me. She does not love me. But I love myself. And that is actually the best place to be in. To simply say, but I love myself. And when you get down to this one, then you can say, hey, I'm actually doing it for myself also. Because I feel like I'm kind of sick of a lot of stuff. Like, most of all, probably my own bullshit. If you want to get rid of that one, I mean, that's a little bit harder. Like, that's really... You see, now I didn't save it. But I did save the other one. I hope. If not... Oh my god. Sometimes I just make my own life really complicated. Say, get this out now. Get what out now? Right? Sometimes you just have to do something. You know, you just have to get things out. Emotionally. And once they're out, you're just gonna figure it out. And once you figure it out, you know, you may call yourself wise, but I also think, what's the point? Yeah, it's like, I'm not here to roll joints for people, right? If you haven't figured out how to roll your own joints, then maybe you're not really sure that you want to smoke. And that means if you're not sure that you want to smoke, then maybe you should just stop. And if you're not sure that you really like the spiritual path and learning how to be conscious of all of these things that are happening anyway, whether you contribute to them or not, I mean, it's still happening anyway. But I just find it a little bit easier when I just pay attention to what's going on so that I can deal with it. And that's it, right? That's basically it. I have to take responsibility for my life and the things that I want in it so that I can learn to live a bit better, to make conscious choices, to realize, how does cannabis make me feel? How would this woman make me feel? How is my life going? How am I going? Am I true to myself, right? These are very important questions. You know, is smoking really helping me, or is it actually making me weak? I feel like if I use it occasionally, let's say, you know, I use it now for 1 month and then I stop and then I go without again, that's a much better approach in my book, like from my perspective, than to simply keep going without ever questioning it. But nobody can force you to stop or even consider stopping. All I can do is say, you know, think about it. I mean, this guy here may be actually what keeps you trapped in sadness. But if you know how to work with that sadness, you can make art with it. You can make art with it. And you can use it to help you to simply say, you know, I'm never going to give up. And how much, you know, how many videos does YouTube need? You know, how many videos does YouTube need? How many posts does Instagram need until people have the feeling, oh yeah, I think he's real. You know, I think he's really doing it. I don't think he's AI. You know, I also don't think he's gonna kill himself soon. So instead of waiting until he dies, maybe we're just gonna jump on the ship with him. You know, people are complete idiots Like, they're really like, what am I supposed to do? Because all they do is they just sit around, they watch movies, they just do nothing. They just do nothing. I have to work. I eat gluten. And that's what I find sickening, right? That's what I find sickening. The stupidity of people, which is how I started, and now I remembered it. You know, that's my motivation. I just do this because people are fucking dumb. People are so fucking dumb, and I just want to rub it into their faces. You know, there are people who know how to do better. You know, if you feel weak, you just do a couple of push-ups instead of going to a hooker or just installing Tinder or something, you know. There's like people who actually say, you know, I love this woman, I don't fucking know why. I just love her. And when I try to not love her, I just feel bad. So I'm just gonna continue loving her instead of always running to other women and fucking around. You know, I may play with it in my mind, but to do it is a completely different thing. Because to do it would be to cheat. But to continue loving this woman would be to be honest, because I've said so from very early on in my content creation. I said I love this woman, I don't know why, she's just awesome. Well, she's just gone. And I'm still sitting here and I say I love her. And I hate it. But that's what duality is, right? You love something very much, you have the potential to hate it a lot. And that's family for you, that's just love. And if you meet someone and you just see yourself in this person, it's like, she's like me, like, or she can be like me, or she's a little bit like me. Right? So, do you want it? It's an investment. You invest now into the love, and when she comes back, you can look her in the eye and you can say, you know, I stay true to you. You know, what's there to say? You know, it's like, what can I say? You know, it's so obvious, what can I say about it? And of course it was obvious when we met. After a while, it turned out to be really obvious. But then you just want to play a bit. You just want to see, you know, how far can I go, right? How far can I go away from this? You know, is it a trap or is it liberation? Or can a trap be liberating? Because I'm trapped in this apartment, and that's the most liberating thing that has ever happened to me. Because I'm trapped in this apartment, I don't have to deal with the shit that people have to do on a daily basis out there. It's like collecting trash, talking to angry customers. I just have to be in here and be creative. And if that's not heaven, I don't know what is. Because I'm literally entrapping myself. I'm trapping myself in this apartment. So I don't have to go out there and deal with people's shit. I just say, you know I exist. You know I'm dealing with my shit. And now I want you all to deal with your own shit. And when people do that, because you've shown them that you're doing it, it's like, let's get this shit going. So I'm doing my job, you're doing your job. I'm taking care of my shit, and you can listen to what I'm saying and take care of your own shit. Do you get it? It's like, that's how this works. It's like giving, taking. I give something, and I get something back. The least you can do is implement whatever you think you learned from me into your life, and then grow as a person, and then just try to understand what sadhana means. sadhana. Look it up. It's basically community service. But not in the sense that, you tell me what to do. No, I tell myself what to do because I connect with my innermost feelings and desires. And from that, I basically observe all the options that I have, everything that surrounds me. I'm going to observe it. And then I'm going to say, how do I feel about this, right? Instead of just going and having a threesome because other people say it's good, that's the same like to just go around and having people shoot shit into your arm, although you don't know what that is. I mean, it's like going to a heroin junkie and saying, just, hit me. I don't know what diseases you carry or what energy you carry, but, just hit me. So, having a threesome is basically the same thing. There's going to be people that love it. There's going to be people that hate it. And there's going to be people who just, yeah, whatever, right? I know it exists, but I don't really care. I sometimes look at threesomes and I think, could it not be nice? That's also where I'm coming from. I think I'm probably not enough for that woman. So I think, she needs more men. But maybe all she wants is me. And then I take in another man. It's like filming yourself. That's what pornography is actually, this amateur porn. Because you have trouble opening up to each other, and then you take the camera into the room, and then it's less awkward because now it's like there's somebody else looking at you. It's like, oh wow, But what you want is that your partner is looking at you from their heart. You want that they open, and that's why, there's a point to have cuddle sex, to really embrace each other. And if you can't have that because you're too stuck on, I'm super righteous, I'm super good, I'm better than you, or, I don't know what to say, well, then it's your problem. I can't help you with that. If you're shy and all you can do is stand there and proclaim about, I don't know what, maybe that's just what you like. Maybe that's what your wife really likes, and you just feel insecure about yourself. Well, why don't you just, you could just stop talking and just try to, just stretch out your hand, and then your wife's like, what do you want now? After 30 years of ignoring each other because you had children and you never made space for having sex. It's like suddenly, wait, now you want to cuddle after 30 years of, just fucking? Yeah, let's try this again. Let's like, and then suddenly the handcrafts like, oh, now I feel like, oh, I'm so excited. But it's really annoying. So you can ask yourself, well, if my partner doesn't do it, and I don't do it, then nobody's gonna do it. And if your partner doesn't do it, how much can you get your partner to do it? Well, you can't. You can make yourself like really attractive. I mean, I'm all over the internet. I'm all over the internet. If this woman really exists and she knows I exist and she's the way I think she is, well, she cannot stand it not being with me. I just think such a woman should exist in my world. I really think such a woman should exist in my world. I'm not sure if I should stop this now. I just keep on babbling. Wow. Yeah, I'm really tense. This is how I used to do it. I didn't smoke. I just drank coffee and I did shit. And then I started smoking again. I realized it just makes me really weak. And if something makes me weak, then I'm trying to get rid of it. And if there's a woman that wants to make me weak, then I'm going to try to get rid of her. And if she allows that, then I was right. If she allows me getting rid of her, then I was right. But that probably then also might come at the cost of being alone again. But I think it's better to be alone than to be with a woman that weighs you down. Because I'm not such a heavy guy. I mean, I can hold myself. I can do what I do, but I just expect the woman to know what she's supposed to do in this. She has to know how to be a woman, how to treat her man. She has to know how to feed her child. I can't tell her that. I cannot be with a woman that totally believes in this kind of, doctors and, all these medications that they give to people and, all this surgery they do. If I would live with a woman like this, it just couldn't work because she's living in an entirely different place. I'm living in the place that it's all energy, I can heal myself, right? If I lay here and I put my hands on my chest and I quiet down enough and I relax, I can heal myself. I can go into nature, I can swim in the ocean, and I can cleanse my energy, and then I don't have to go to doctors and have surgery all the time because my diet and the way I live is actually adapted to healing myself and to keeping myself clean, right? From like filthy energy, which it does exist, by the way. So, but if you know how to clean yourself, how to purify yourself, well, go for it. And that's basically what this image stands for, A lot of the stuff that I carry, it's just was inside of me. I just had to get it out. But I don't know where it's coming from. It's just there. I draw an image, whatever, I don't know where this is coming from. It's just there. I have an emotion, I think I would hate working at the Boulder Hall. And I realize I think that's true. Because I'm not a worldly man. I'm like somewhere up there. And that's because I think I'm quite big spiritually. And that's all there is to it. I feel like a giant. And I can literally zoom in and out of myself. So if I were to be with a woman that would constantly want to run to doctors and would just be afraid of everything, I would just leave. Even if it was my child, I would just leave. And I would just leave, believe me. I would just leave. And that brings me back to the story, right, with that woman that was pregnant. I spent time with her, and she was exactly like this. I carried her through pregnancy and 2 months after pregnancy and the birth. And she just pissed me off so much. Like the doctor she chose, she just wanted the whole package. She was like, I live in fear, and that's why I need doctors to give me the feeling I'm safe. She was one of these women that just cling to research and statistics and, you have to eat this, you have to take B12 supplements if you're vegan. And I just say, why don't you just eat eggs once in a while? Or, I don't think I need B12. Ever. I don't take any supplements. And, well, maybe that's why I'm so weak, right? I think it has a lot more to do with emotions. I don't think it's necessarily what you eat, it's how you eat it. I think you can eat, that's something I really know. I want to eat a chicken, crab, like a roasted duck or something. I always loved eating the skin. And I'm not sure if I have to, sometimes I feel like I really want to eat that, like a whole chicken. And then I think maybe I should put it to the test. Maybe I should really test it, but I don't want to go back to this, right? I don't want to go back to this guy who's just full and sick of life. And that's what I feel like every time I eat something that doesn't work with me. I just feel sick. And I'm not sure how, I ate the fish because I had the feeling I want to eat fish, and then I ate it. But to be honest, I'd rather eat fish than, fake vegan sausage. Right? But I could just eat lentils, which maybe is something that I should be doing now. just fry something. I've been trying to avoid that. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm just clinging to this thing. I don't know why I have to say all these things. I'm not quite sure. There's no clear message. I just do this because I have the feeling it keeps me going. I think I want to cook now, so I'm just going to turn this off. Or I'm just going to keep it going, and I'm going to cook, and maybe I'm just going to... But I've got nothing on here, that's the problem. Maybe I just have to... Right, so let's just see. Oh my god. Like, this is not about... that's what I have from Jane Augustine, I think that was the, from Avatar, the movie. What she says to Jake Sully, this is not about hand-eye coordination. This is something real. Like, this is something, like, that's really happening. And you cannot just, like, this is something you may never understand if you think this is all about just bogus. Now what do I want? Right, so let's just listen, because I have a problem with Carlos Castaneda, because I'm not sure if he's genuine. I'm just gonna...
The Active Side of Infinity by Carlos Castaneda. Narrated by Luis Moreno.
I'm gonna turn off the microphone.
The author begins with a dedication. This book is dedicated to the two men who gave me the impetus and the tools to do anthropological fieldwork, Professor Clement Meehan and Professor Harold Garfinkel. Following their suggestions, I plunged into a field situation from which I never emerged. If I failed to fulfill the spirit of their teaching, so be it. I couldn't help it. A greater force, which shamans call infinity, swallowed me before I could formulate clear-cut social scientists' proposition. Syntax. A man staring at his equations said that the universe had a beginning. There had been an explosion, he said, a bang of bangs, and the universe was born. And it is expanding, he said. He had even calculated the length of its life, 10 billion revolutions of the Earth around the sun. The entire globe cheered. They found his calculations to be science. None thought that by proposing that the universe began, the man had merely mirrored the syntax of his mother tongue, a syntax which demands beginnings like birth and developments like maturation, and ends like death as statements of facts. The universe began, and it is getting old, the man assured us, and it will die like all things die, like he himself died, after confirming mathematically the syntax of his mother tongue. The other syntax. Did the universe really begin? Is the theory of the Big Bang true? These are not questions, though they sound like they are. Is the syntax that requires beginnings, developments, and ends as statements of facts the only syntax that exists? That's the real question. There are other syntaxes. There is one, for example, which demands that varieties of intensity be taken as facts. In that syntax, nothing begins and nothing ends. Thus, birth is not a clean, clear-cut event, but a specific type of intensity, and so is maturation, and so is death. A man of that syntax, looking over his equations, finds that he has calculated enough varieties of intensity to say with authority that the universe never began and will never end, but that it has gone and is going now and will go through endless fluctuations of intensity. That man could very well conclude that the universe itself is the chariot of intensity and that one can board it to journey through changes without end. He will conclude all that and much more, perhaps without ever realizing that he is merely confirming the syntax of his mother tongue. A quotation. "The sorcerer's revolution," he continued, "is that they refuse to honor agreements in which they did not participate. Nobody ever asked me if I would consent to be eaten by beings of a different kind of awareness. My parents just brought me into this world to be food, like themselves, and that's the end of the story." Introduction. This book is a collection of the memorable events in my life. I gathered them following the recommendation of Don Juan Matus, a Yaqui Indian shaman from Mexico, who, as a teacher, endeavored for 13 years to make available to me the cognitive world of the shamans who lived in Mexico in ancient times. Don Juan Matus's suggestion that I gather this collection of memorable events was made as if it were something casual, something that occurred to him on the spur of the moment. That was Don Juan's style of teaching. He veiled the importance of certain maneuvers behind the mundane. He hid in this fashion the sting of finality, presenting it as something no different from any of the concerns of everyday life. Don Juan revealed to me as time went by that the shamans of ancient Mexico had conceived of this collection of device to stir caches of energy that exist within the self. They explained these caches as being composed of energy that originates in the body itself and becomes displaced, pushed out of reach by the circumstances of our daily lives. In this sense, the collection of memorable events was, for Don Juan and the shamans of his lineage, the means for redeploying their unused energy. The prerequisite for this collection was the genuine and all-consuming act of putting together the sum total of one's emotions and realizations without sparing anything. According to Don Juan, the shamans of his lineage were convinced that the collection of memorable events was the vehicle for the emotional and energetic adjustment necessary for venturing, in terms of perception, into the unknown. Don Juan described the total goal of the shamanistic knowledge that he handled as the preparation for facing the definitive journey, the journey that every human being has to take at the end of his life. He said that through their discipline and resolve, shamans were capable of retaining their individual awareness and purpose after death. For them, the vague, idealistic state that modern man calls life after death was a concrete region filled to capacity with practical affairs of a different order than the practical affairs of daily life, yet bearing a similar functional practicality. Don Juan considered that to collect the memorable events in their lives was, for shamans, the preparation for their entrance into that concrete region, which they called the active side of infinity. Don Juan and I were talking one afternoon under his ramada, a loose structure made of thin poles of bamboo. It looked like a roofed porch that was partially shaded from the sun, but that wouldn't provide protection at all from the rain. There were some small, sturdy freight boxes there that served as benches. Their freight brands were faded and appeared to be more ornament than identification. I was sitting on one of them. My back was against the front wall of the house. Don Juan was sitting on another box, leaning against a pole that supported the ramada. I had just driven in a few minutes earlier. It had been a day-long ride in hot, humid weather. I was nervous, fidgety, and sweaty. Don Juan began talking to me as soon as I'd comfortably settled down on the box. With a broad smile, he commented that overweight people hardly ever knew how to fight fatness. The smile that played on his lips gave me an inkling that he wasn't being facetious. He was just pointing out to me, in a most direct and, at the same time, indirect way, that I was overweight. I became so nervous that I tipped over the freight box on which I was sitting, and my back banged very hard against the thin wall of the house. The impact shook the house to its foundations. Don Juan looked at me inquiringly, but instead of asking me if I was all right, he assured me that I hadn't cracked the house. Then he expansively explained to me that his house was a temporary dwelling for him, that he really lived somewhere else. When I asked him where he really lived, he stared at me. His look wasn't belligerent. It was, rather, a firm deterrent to improper questions. I didn't comprehend what he wanted. I was about to ask the same question again, but he stopped me. "Questions of that sort are not asked around here," he said firmly. "Ask anything you wish about procedures or ideas. Whenever I'm ready to tell you where I live, if ever, I will tell you, without your having to ask me." I instantly felt rejected. My face turned red involuntarily. I was definitely offended. Don Juan's explosion of laughter added immensely to my chagrin. Not only had he rejected me, he had insulted me and then laughed at me. "I live here temporarily," he went on, unconcerned with my foul mood, "because this is a magical center. In fact, I live here because of you." That statement unraveled me. I couldn't believe it. I thought he was probably saying that to ease my irritation at being insulted. "Do you really live here because of me?" I finally asked him, unable to contain my curiosity. "Yes," he said evenly. "I have to groom you. You're like me. I'll repeat to you now what I've already told you. The quest of every Nagual, or leader, in every generation of shamans or sorcerers is to find a new man or woman who, like himself, shows a double energetic structure. I saw this feature in you when we were in the bus depot in Nogales. When I see your energy, I see two balls of luminosity superimposed, one on top of the other, and that feature binds us together. I can't refuse you any more than you can refuse me." His words caused a most strange agitation in me. A moment before, I had been angry. Now, I wanted to weep. He went on, saying that he wanted to start me off on something shamans called the warrior's way, backed by the strength of the area where he lived, which was the center of very strong emotions and reactions. Warlike people had lived there for thousands of years, soaking the land with their concern with war. He lived at that time in the state of Sonora, in northern Mexico, about 100 miles south of the city of Guaymas. I always went there to visit him under the auspices of conducting my field work. "Do I need to enter into war, Don Juan?" I asked, genuinely worried after he declared that the concern with war was something that I would need someday. I had already learned to take everything he said with the utmost seriousness. "You bet your boots," he replied, smiling. When you have absorbed all there is to be absorbed in this area, I'll move away. I had no grounds to doubt what he was saying, but I couldn't conceive of him as living anywhere else. He was absolutely part of everything that surrounded him. His house, however, seemed indeed to be a temporary dwelling. It was a shack typical of the Yaqui farmers. It was made out of wattle and daub with a flat, thatched roof. It had one big room for eating and sleeping and a roofless kitchen. It's very difficult to deal with overweight people, he said. It seemed to be a non sequitur, but it wasn't. Don Juan was simply going back to the subject he had introduced before I'd interrupted him by hitting my back on the wall of his house. A minute ago, you hit my house like a demolition ball, he said, shaking his head slowly from side to side. What an impact worthy of a portly man. I had the uncomfortable feeling that he was talking to me from the point of view of someone who had given up on me. I immediately took on a defensive attitude. He listened, smirking, to my frantic explanations that my weight was normal for my bone structure. That's right, he conceded facetiously. You have big bones. You could probably carry 30 more pounds with great ease, and no one, I assure you, no one would notice. I would not notice. His mocking smile told me that I was definitely pudgy. He asked me then about my health in general, and I went on talking, desperately trying to get out of any further comment about my weight. He changed the subject himself. What's new about your eccentricities and aberrations? He asked, with a deadpan expression. I idiotically answered that they were okay. Eccentricities and aberrations was how he labeled my interest in being a collector. At that time, I had taken up, with renewed zeal, something that I had enjoyed doing all my life, collecting anything collectible. I collected magazines, stamps, records, World War II paraphernalia such as daggers, military helmets, flags, etc. All I can tell you, Don Juan, about my aberrations is that I'm trying to sell my collections, I said, with the air of a martyr who's being forced to do something odious. To be a collector is not such a bad idea, he said, as if he really believed it. The crux of the matter is not that you collect, but what you collect. You collect junk, worthless objects that imprison you as surely as your pet dog does. You can't just up and leave if you have your pet to look after, or if you have to worry about what would happen to your collections if you're not around. I'm seriously looking for buyers, Don Juan, believe me, I protested. No, don't feel that I'm accusing you of anything, he retorted. In fact, I like your collector's spirit. I just don't like your collections, that's all. I would like, though, to engage your collector's eye. I would like to propose to you a worthwhile collection. Don Juan paused for a long moment. He seemed to be in search of words, or perhaps it was only a dramatic, well-placed hesitation. He looked at me with a deep, penetrating stare. Every warrior, as a matter of duty, collects a special album, Don Juan went on. An album that reveals the warrior's personality, an album that attests to the circumstances of his life. Why do you call this a collection, Don Juan? I asked in an argumentative tone, or an album, for that matter. Because it is both, he retorted. But above all, it is like an album of pictures made out of memories, pictures made out of the recollection of memorable events. Are those memorable events memorable in some specific way? I asked. They are memorable because they have a special significance in one's life, he said. My proposal is that you assemble this album by putting in it the complete account of various events that have had profound significance for you. Every event in my life has had profound significance for me, Don Juan, I said forcefully, and felt instantly the impact of my own pomposity. Not really, he replied, smiling, apparently enjoying my reactions immensely. Not every event in your life has had profound significance for you. There are a few, however, that I would consider likely to have changed things for you, to have illuminated your path. Ordinarily, events that change our path are impersonal affairs, and yet are extremely personal. I'm not trying to be difficult, Don Juan, but believe me, everything that has happened to me meets those qualifications, I said, knowing that I was lying. Immediately after voicing this statement, I wanted to apologize, but Don Juan didn't pay attention to me. It was as if I hadn't said a thing. Don't think about this album in terms of banalities, or in terms of a trivial rehashing of your life experiences, he said. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and tried to quiet my mind. I was talking to myself frantically about my insoluble problem. I most certainly didn't like to visit Don Juan at all. In his presence, I felt threatened. He verbally accosted me and didn't leave me any room whatsoever to show my worth. I detested losing face every time I opened my mouth. I detested being the fool. But there was another voice inside me. A voice that came from a greater depth, more distant, almost faint. In the midst of my barrages of known dialogue, I heard myself saying that it was too late for me to turn back. But it wasn't really my voice or my thoughts that I was experiencing. It was rather like an unknown voice that said I was too far gone into Don Juan's world, and that I needed him more than I needed air. Say whatever you wish, the voice seemed to say to me, but if you were not the egomaniac that you are, you wouldn't be so chagrined. That's the voice of your other mind, Don Juan said, just as if he'd been listening to or reading my thoughts. My body jumped involuntarily. My fright was so intense that tears came to my eyes. I confessed to Don Juan the whole nature of my turmoil. Your conflict is a very natural one, he said. And believe you me, I don't exacerbate it that much. I'm not the type. I have some stories to tell you about what my teacher, the Nagual Julian, used to do to me. I detested him with my entire being. I was very young, and I saw how women adored him, gave themselves to him like anything, and when I tried to say hello to them, they would turn against me like lionesses, ready to bite my head off. They hated my guts and loved him. How do you think I felt? How did you resolve this conflict, Don Juan? I asked, with more than genuine interest. I didn't resolve anything, he declared. The conflict, or whatever, was the result of the battle between my two minds. Every one of us human beings has two minds. One is totally ours, and it is like a faint voice that always brings us order, directness, purpose. The other mind is a foreign installation. It brings us conflict, self-assertion, doubts, hopelessness. My fixation on my own mental concatenations was so intense that I completely missed what Don Juan had said. I could clearly remember every one of his words, but they had no meaning for me. Don Juan, very calmly and looking directly into my eyes, repeated what he'd just said. I was still incapable of grasping what he meant. I couldn't focus my attention on his words. For some strange reason, Don Juan, I can't concentrate on what you're telling me, I said. I understand perfectly why you can't, he said, smiling expansively. And so will you someday, at the same time that you resolve the conflict of whether you like me or not. The day you cease to be the me center of the world. In the meantime, he continued, let's put the topic of our two minds aside and go back to the idea of preparing your album of memorable events. I should add that such an album is an exercise in discipline and impartiality. Consider this album to be an act of war. Don Juan's assertion that my conflict of both liking and not liking to see him was going to end whenever I abandoned my egocentrism was no solution for me. In fact, that assertion made me angrier. It frustrated me all the more. And when I heard Don Juan speak of the album as an act of war, I lashed out at him with all my poison. The idea that this is a collection of events is already hard to understand, I said, in a tone of protest. But that on top of all this you call it an album and say that such an album is an act of war, it's too much for me. It's too obscure. Being obscure makes the metaphor lose its meaning. How strange. It's the opposite for me, Don Juan replied calmly. Such an album being an act of war has all the meaning in the world for me. I wouldn't like my album of memorable events to be anything but an act of war. I wanted to argue my point further and explain to him that I did understand the idea of an album of memorable events. I objected to the perplexing way he was describing it. I thought of myself in those days as an advocate of clarity and functionalism in the use of language. Don Juan didn't comment on my belligerent mood. He only shook his head, as if he were fully agreeing with me. After a while, I either completely ran out of energy, or I got a gigantic surge of it. All of a sudden, without any effort on my part, I realized the futility of my outbursts. I felt embarrassed to no end. What possesses me to act the way I do? I asked Don Juan in earnest. I was, at that instant, utterly baffled. I was so shaken by my realization that without any volition on my part, I began to weep. Don't worry about stupid details, Don Juan said reassuringly. Every one of us, male and female, is like this. Do you mean, Don Juan, that we're naturally petty and contradictory? No. We're not naturally petty and contradictory, he replied. Our pettiness and contradictions are, rather, the result of a transcendental conflict that afflicts every one of us, but of which only sorcerers are painfully and hopelessly aware, the conflict of our two minds. Don Juan peered at me. His eyes were like two black charcoals. You've been telling me on and on about our two minds, I said, but my brain can't register what you're saying. Why? You'll get to know why in due time, he said. For the present, it will be sufficient that I repeat to you what I've said before about our two minds. One is our true mind, the product of all our life experiences, the one that rarely speaks because it has been defeated and relegated to obscurity. The other, the mind we use daily for everything we do, is a foreign installation. I think that the crux of the matter is that the concept of the mind being a foreign installation is so outlandish that my mind refuses to take it seriously, I said, feeling that I had made a real discovery. Don Juan didn't comment on what I said. He continued explaining the issue of the two minds as if I hadn't said a word. To resolve the conflict of the two minds is a matter of intending it, he said. Sorcerers beckon intent by voicing the word intent loud and clear. Intent is a force that exists in the universe. When sorcerers beckon intent, it comes to them and sets up the path for attainment, which means that sorcerers always accomplish what they set out to do. Do you mean, Don Juan, that sorcerers get anything they want? Even if it's something petty and arbitrary? I asked. No, I didn't mean that. Intent can be called, of course, for anything, he replied. But sorcerers have found out the hard way that intent comes to them only for something that is abstract. That's the safety valve for sorcerers. Otherwise, they would be unbearable. In your case, beckoning intent to resolve the conflict of your two minds, or to hear the voice of your true mind, is not a petty or arbitrary matter. Quite the contrary. It is ethereal and abstract, and yet as vital to you as anything can be. Don Juan paused for a moment. Then he began to talk again about the album. My own album, being an act of war, demanded a super careful selection, he said. It is now a precise collection of the unforgettable moments of my life, and everything that led me to them. I have concentrated in it what has been and will be meaningful to me. In my opinion, a warrior's album is something most concrete, something so to the point that it is shattering. I had no clue as to what Don Juan wanted, and yet I did understand him to perfection. He advised me to sit down, alone, and let my thoughts, memories, and ideas come to me freely. He recommended that I make an effort to let the voice from the depths of me speak out and tell me what to select. Don Juan told me then to go inside the house and lie down on a bed that I had there. It was made of wooden boxes and dozens of empty burlap sacks that served as a mattress. My whole body ached, and when I lay on the bed it was actually extremely comfortable. I took his suggestions to heart and began to think about my past, looking for events that had left a mark on me. I soon realized that my assertion that every event in my life had been meaningful was nonsense. As I pressed myself to recollect, I found that I didn't even know where to start. Through my mind ran endless, disassociated thoughts and memories of events that had happened to me, but I couldn't decide whether or not they had had any meaning for me. The impression I got was that nothing had had any significance whatsoever. It looked as if I had gone through life like a corpse, empowered to walk and talk, but not to feel anything. Having no concentration whatsoever to pursue the subject beyond a shallow attempt, I gave up and fell asleep. Did you have any success? Don Juan asked me when I woke up hours later. Instead of being at ease after sleeping and resting, I was again moody and belligerent. No, I didn't have any success, I barked. Did you hear that voice from the depths of you? He asked. I think I did, I lied. What did it say to you? He inquired in an urgent tone. I can't think of it, Don Juan, I muttered. You're back in your daily mind, he said, and patted me forcefully on the back. Your daily mind has taken over again. Let's relax it by talking about your collection of memorable events. I should tell you that the selection of what to put in your album is not an easy matter. This is the reason I say that making this album is an act of war. You have to remake yourself 10 times over in order to know what to select. I clearly understood then, if only for a second, that I had two minds. However, the thought was so vague that I lost it instantly. What remained was just the sensation of an incapacity to fulfill Don Juan's requirement. Instead of graciously accepting my incapacity, though, I allowed it to become a threatening affair. The driving force of my life in those days was to appear always in a good light. To be incompetent was the equivalent of being a loser, something that was thoroughly intolerable to me. Since I didn't know how to respond to the challenge Don Juan was posing, I did the only thing I knew how to do. I got angry. I've got to think a great deal more about this, Don Juan, I said. I've got to give my mind some time to settle on the idea. Of course. Don Juan assured me. Take all the time in the world. But hurry. Nothing else was said about the subject at that time. At home, I forgot about it completely, until one day, when quite abruptly, in the middle of a lecture I was attending, the imperious command to search for the memorable events of my life hit me like a bodily jolt, a nervous spasm that shook my entire body from head to toe. I began to work in earnest. It took me months to rehash experiences in my life that I believed were meaningful to me. However, upon examining my collection, I realized that I was dealing only with ideas that had no substance whatsoever. The events I remembered were just vague points of reference that I remembered abstractly. Once again, I had the most unsettling suspicion that I had been reared just to act, without ever stopping to feel anything. One of the vaguest events I recalled, which I wanted to make memorable at any cost, was the day I found out I had been admitted to graduate school at UCLA. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't remember what I'd been doing that day. There was nothing interesting or unique about that day, except for the idea that it had to be memorable. Entering graduate school should have made me happy or proud of myself, but it didn't. Another sample in my collection was the day I almost got married to Kay Condor. Her last name wasn't really Condor, but she had changed it because she wanted to be an actress. Her ticket to fame was that she actually looked like Carole Lombard. That day was memorable in my mind not so much because of the events that took place, but because she was beautiful and wanted to marry me. She was a head taller than I was, which made her all the more interesting to me. I was thrilled with the idea of marrying a tall woman in a church ceremony. I rented a gray tuxedo. The pants were quite wide for my height. They weren't bell-bottoms, they were just wide, and that bothered me to no end. Another thing that annoyed me immensely was that the sleeves of the pink shirt I'd bought for the occasion were about 3 inches too long. I had to use rubber bands to hold them up. Outside of that, everything was perfect until the moment when the guests and I found out that Kay Condor had gotten cold feet and wasn't going to show up. Being a very proper young lady, she had sent me a note of apology by motorcycle messenger. She wrote that she didn't believe in divorce and couldn't commit herself for the rest of her days to someone who didn't quite share her views on life. She reminded me that I snickered every time I said the name Condor, something that showed a total lack of respect for her person. She said that she had discussed the matter with her mother. Both of them loved me dearly, but not enough to make me part of their family. She added that bravely and wisely, we all had to cut our losses. My state of mind was one of total numbness. When I tried to recollect that day, I couldn't remember whether I felt horribly humiliated at being left standing in front of a lot of people in my gray rented tuxedo with the wide-legged pants, or whether I was crushed because Kay Condor didn't marry me. These were the only 2 events I was capable of isolating with clarity. They were meager examples, but after rehashing them, I had succeeded in redressing them as tales of philosophical acceptance. I thought of myself as a being who goes through life with no real feelings, who has only intellectual views of everything. Taking Don Juan's metaphors as models, I even constructed one of my own, a being who lives his life vicariously in terms of what it should be. I believed, for instance, that the day I was admitted to graduate school at UCLA should have been a memorable day. Since it wasn't, I tried my best to imbue it with an importance I was far from feeling. A similar thing happened with the day I nearly married Kay Condor. It should have been a devastating day for me, but it wasn't. At the moment of recollecting it, I knew that there was nothing there, and began to work as hard as I could to construct what I should have felt. The next time I went to Don Juan's house, I presented to him my 2 samples of memorable events as soon as I arrived. "This is a pile of nonsense," he declared. "None of it will do. The stories are related exclusively to you as a person who thinks, feels, cries, or doesn't feel anything at all. The memorable events of a shaman's album are affairs that will stand the test of time because they have nothing to do with him, and yet he is in the thick of them. He'll always be in the thick of them, for the duration of his life, and perhaps beyond, but not quite personally." His words left me feeling dejected, totally defeated. I sincerely believed in those days that Don Juan was an intransigent old man who found special delight in making me feel stupid. He reminded me of a master craftsman I'd met at a sculptor's foundry where I worked while going to art school. The master artisan used to criticize and find flaws with everything his advanced apprentices did, and would demand that they correct their work according to his recommendations. His apprentices would turn around and pretend to correct their work. I remembered the glee of the master when he would say, upon being presented with the same work, "Now you have a real thing." "Don't feel bad," Don Juan said, shaking me out of my recollection. "In my time, I was in the same spot, for years. Not only did I not know what to choose, I thought I had no experiences to choose from. It seemed that nothing had ever happened to me. Of course, everything had happened to me, but in my effort to defend the idea of myself, I had no time or inclination to notice anything." "Can you tell me, Don Juan, specifically, what's wrong with my stories? I know that they're nothing, but the rest of my life is just like that." "I will repeat this for you," he said. "The stories of a warrior's album are not personal. Your story of the day you were admitted to school is nothing but your assertion about you as the center of everything. You feel, you don't feel. You realize, you don't realize. Do you see what I mean? All of the story is just you." "But how can it be otherwise, Don Juan?" I asked. "In your other story, you almost touch on what I want, but you turn it again into something extremely personal. I know that you could add more details, but all those details would be an extension of your person and nothing else." "I sincerely cannot see your point, Don Juan," I protested. "Every story seen through the eyes of the witness has to be perforce personal." Yes, of course," he said, smiling, delighted, as usual, by my confusion. "But then, they're not stories for a warrior's album. They are stories for other purposes. The memorable events we are after have the dark touch of the impersonal. That touch permeates them. I don't know how else to explain this." I believed then that I had a moment of inspiration and that I understood what he meant by the dark touch of the impersonal. I thought that he meant something a bit morbid. Darkness meant that for me, and I related to him a story from my childhood. One of my older cousins was in medical school. He was an intern, and one day he took me to the morgue. He assured me that a young man owed it to himself to see dead people because that sight was very educational. It demonstrated the transitoriness of life. He harangued